want to put that message out there that nothing that we're doing is risk-free. You very well could be at the point where you have maxed out your potential. What options are on the table? You really want to use these as sparingly as possible. Are you prepared to do what you need to do in order to bridge that gap? And says, hey, I think I've maxed out my natural potential. I think I'm ready to make that jump and consider what other alternatives there are to building muscle. Honestly, it is so rare to have someone come to me who is doing everything right. They're eating enough, fatigue management's on point, volume's appropriate, they're on a program that is designed very well and conducive for hypertrophy. They're progressively overloading, they're lifting at the right intensity. Is your volume appropriate per exercise? Is it conducive with actually allowing you to make progress week to week or bi-weekly? We look at their videos. Almost no one is correctly training at an RIR of 1 or 2, even 3. A lot of people aren't even training there. And this in itself is a way to pull out more progress. Now, let's just say on the off chance that isn't you. Let's say you are training correctly, your RIR is 1 to 2, you are able to recover, you are giving yourself enough food, because this is also something that does hinder muscle growth. You're not opposed to seeing scale weight go up, but even as it goes up, it is so slow and it's almost impossible to tell if you're actually making progress. So bottom line, you're doing everything possible to facilitate growth. Now, the next step from here is really considering, okay, are you prepared to do what you need to do in order to bridge that gap between being a natural athlete to being a non-natural athlete? So if that's something that you want to do, I would start by considering, what are your aspirations in bodybuilding? Is this something that you're like, hey, I want to see how far I can go. I want to climb the top, and if I have the ability to be at the top of this sport in my division, I want to be there. I'm going to be able to do it. I'm going to be able to facilitate every aspect of what that's going to entail. Then it's at this point where I would really consider, hey, and what is the decision-making process around this? When it comes to classifying what options there are, I would look at 2 groups. There's one group that does not pose the same risk as the other group does. The risky group and the non-risky group. And we're just going to call them that for the sake of YouTube. Unless this is on Patreon, and then I apologize. I'm still figuring out what is acceptable on YouTube and how to play within their rules. Within that group of options that you have that will pose the risk of virilization, you really want to use these as sparingly as possible. You only want to use them when they're necessary. Now, the only exception to this is if you are talking about TRT, which is a lifelong commitment. Now, HRT probably deserves its own separate video, so I'm not going to dive too deep there. But what I will say is that all of your other options, you have to know that every time that you implement one of those, you're putting yourself at the risk of voice deepening, facial changes, anatomical changes downstairs, acne, hair growth. And the one that is guaranteed is the suppression of gonadotropin. So this group of supplements that do pose the risk of virilization, they will cause a suppression of LH and FSH. This is absolutely going to take away from your femininity. Been recording all day, so certain lights are dying and I did put them on charge, my bad. If you're going to use something from that category of risky options, I would just make sure you have a really good rationale and that you fully understand what you're doing and the potential risk every time you use it. I would also understand the correct dosage. I would make sure that whoever you're working with, you have good communication around what it means to be feminine to you and whether or not using said option will be appropriate based on your needs and your desire to preserve that femininity. So then we get into the lower risk options, and I won't say that they are risk-free. And I really want to put that message out there that nothing that we're doing is risk-free. Honestly, I think the best way to go about this is approaching all of this very conservatively and only using what is absolutely needed. Outside of that, you really have to consider, what is the point of what you're doing? Do you have good rationale? If you navigate this correctly, what you're going to find is that you really don't need nearly as much as what you've probably heard or what you probably think you need. What I can tell you is I've yet to use a risky option in my off season specifically for muscle growth outside of TRT at a replacement dose. My test levels are between 70 and 90. It's mind-blowing how much progress you can get out of having stable levels in your off season. Now, is this to say if you are in wellness, figure, physique, bodybuilding, that you can get away with that? No, very unlikely. I'm a professional bikini competitor. I'm still regarded as undersized. I need a lot more muscle. So take my experience, take it with a grain of salt, because honestly, your needs are gonna likely be different than mine. If you're interested in exclusive content, I'm talking the very specifics of everything that I've alluded to in this video, be sure to sign up at my Patreon. The link is in the description below. If this video was helpful, please let me know. Like, comment, subscribe, and as always, I will see you in the next one.